in the sand. Can someone help me to understand what's going on? What's taking place now in my nation? All of a sudden, like some people don't know right from wrong. They taking their death like some sheep with their heads bowed down. But I remember times in the past when politicians were doing rap. They wasn't afraid to call out their wrongs and let them know they're not having that. But nowadays, it's like people scared to speak the truth. They're living in fear. Disparity, hypocrisy, it's confusing me, and it's a shame to see. They can't do that. They can't do that. They can't have the people hostage. To speak the truth, everybody afraid. They can't do that. They can't do that. From public servants you can hear a song. Victimization, Lord, they tie the tongue. They can't do that. 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 Pam pam fado, pam pam boy. Pressure, pressure. Everywhere you go, the same cry. People can't meet their basic needs, Lord, the country dry. But for some people, you can tell them that they don't want to hear. They don't care how much people suffering once they party then. We healthcare system drowning in a mess. Basic medicine, the patients can get them poema.
I want to say a pleasant good afternoon, Grenada, Carriacou, and PD Martinique.
So heartless and dread, but still we PM keep wasting.
Another wonderful, wonderful day in the Spice Island.
Disparate.
Today being Tuesday,
Deep.
the 8th day of July.
It's confused.
2025.
And
Definitely another wonderful one.
they can't do that. They can't do that. They can't turn deaf ear to the people.
I hope each and every one of you guys
They feeding them.
get and ready for another conversation this afternoon.
They can't do that. Too much ego, too much arrogance. No empathy, I do what I want. They can't do that. They can't do that. They can't do that.
So go ahead right now,
Do that. They
share the live,
can't.
let them know that the teacher is here. Yes?
Baby, lover, lover, lover. Pam, pam, padoy, pam, pam, boy.
For information's sake, don't forget Green's Queens promotion. They present 50 Shades Darker. The day cruise on the 27th day of July aboard the Kayak Princess.
Calypsonians.
DJ Fishman, DJ Smiley, MC Big Joe International.
Yourself.
Boarding time is 1.
Who call them?
Filling time from 2. Regular tickets are $85.
Yes.
VIP $300.
Claiming you the people's.
Go check his bar right now in St. George's, Spice Mobile in St. Andrews,
You no long.
or Sam in Guave, alright?
So much was waiting on the Chinese homes.
To the persons of Carriacou and PD Martinique,
Get the load.
let's chat, socialize,
We got
and
four.
have a conversation about the way forward.
Please.
On Friday the 11th day of July, 6:30,
She DBs.
at Dwight Shop in
What's-
Pleasant, Carriacou.
Could get few
You
men.
get the opportunity to meet your caretaker and Deputy Prime Minister of the new National Party,
See, it's confusing
Brother Cox.
me.
Be a part of this one, alright?
To see. They can't do that.
The St. David's constituency branch, they present a barbecue sale on the 18th day, July. That's next Friday, starting from 1 p.m. Barbecue chicken, barbecue fish, barbecue pork, pig food sauce, managed waters, bakes and fish cakes, potato salad, green salad, garlic bread, ice cold bar with you. Would be at Las St. David's, all right? For more information, you can call 414-4978.
Halibidoi, Tidilidei, Tolololoi.
So don't forget to be a part of all the events that are happening.
I hope this song.
So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take this one down right now. This one coming out from Sheldon Douglas. This contribution for Spice Mass 2025. This one is called They Can Do That.
But
yes,
don't allow that to make you deaf or dark in your sight.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, for information's sake, I am not too aware how many of you guys have paid attention to the different media platforms, but if you guys do, or you have, you would realize that the leader of the political party and two other members are out presently in the United Kingdom. So just for information's sake, we just want to inform you guys of that. And so just in case you guys are trying to reach any one of them and you're saying to yourself, how is it that I'm not reaching X or Y? Our political leader and Sister Modeste, and also, yes, and also dear Sister Kate, they both are out of the island. Yes, so we just want to give you that bit of information. Yes, somebody's saying, yes, we know already. The person want me to hurry up this morning, this evening, boy. So ladies and gentlemen, let's start our conversation for today. And I want to start by a press release that was made public by the New National Party. It is a call for accountability in the electoral process. Registration officers' political involvement undermines neutrality and public trust. The New National Party registers its deep concern and utter disappointment over the continued silence and inadequate response from the electoral authorities regarding the conduct of Ms. Amanda Jack, the registration officer for the constituency of Carriacou and PD Martinique. Multiple verified account confirms that Ms. Jack has participated in political events hosted by the ruling National Democratic Congress, including wearing party colors and standing promptly in partisan activities. This conduct is in direct conflict with the obligations to remain impartial and independent in our official capacity. On May 8th, 2025, the Supervisor of Election wrote to the NNP concluding that Ms. Jack's action represents a clear breach of the principle of strict political neutrality and undermines the integrity of the impartiality of the electoral process. Despite this, she has not been removed from her position. Ms. Jack repeated appearances of political events demonstrates a pattern of disregard for the ethical standard except for her position, standards that are essential to maintaining trust in the electoral system, especially in today's climate of growing public, skeptics, all right? It also goes on to say her conduct constitutes a violation of the Representation of the People's Act, the Integrity in the People's Life Act, Act 24 of 2013, and Part 4, of the Code of Conduct, as outlined in the 6th schedule of the Act, is also amongst to serious misconduct under Section 79 of the Employment Act, Act 33 of 2016, and in our view, warrants immediate dismissal. Whether intended or not, Ms. Jack's action have damaged public confidence in the neutrality of the elections office in Carriacou and PD Martinique. Accordingly, the NMP makes a following public call to the Governor General, who was previously notified of the issue, but has yet to respond. We urge immediate intervention in a constitutional role as guardian of the public interest of authority over the electoral process. Yes, to the supervisor of election, we call for a firm public statement reaffirming a not partisan nature of all electoral staff, along with swift enforcement of the standards required by law. To civil society, faith leaders, and concerned citizens, we invite you to stand with us in defending the principle of free, fair, and impartial election. The New National Party will not stand by while the foundation of democracy are compromised. We remain resolute in our duty to protect the integrity of Grenada's electoral system for every citizen of Grenada, Carriacou, and the PT Martinique. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was made public today, and so it is a clarion call being made whereby the question of the conduct of the person responsible or whose sole responsibility is in the electoral office in Carriacou and PD Martinique. Now, we are going to continue making this clarion call, and we also make a precise and renounced call for also the Governor General to look into the issue where the parliamentary representative would have said that he got confidential information from the Integrity Commission. So those are things that we want to remind you guys of, that these persons have considered themselves to become, or they thought to themselves that they have become the greatest thing in our country. And so we want to continue to ask of you, especially patrons, we want to continue to ask of you to pay particular attention to those actions. And when we're out there, we want to continue to ask of you to ask the tough questions. Yes? Ask the tough questions. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to now play a clip that signifies clearly that our present Prime Minister, or Mr. Contradictory, a contradiction I would call him, in so many circumstances where he flipped his mouth. Yeah? Circumstances where, and let me tell you something, when we play these clips, we want you guys to remember the things that were said. And now we have broken down just a few for you. Here are they.
I want to highlight one thing, though, that I've seen Jab Jab already being played on the Nation Rolls. It's a little too early for that, so there's something that we have to talk about. There's carnival season and there's non-carnival season. We're not quite yet into the carnival season, so I think this is something that...
They say it's only local music we play from now until we go back in post. Who said Jab was played? More Jab, take
We will not move forward or prosper as a people if the sole basis for job selection, for promotion, for the award of contracts is party loyalty or personal loyalty. If we continue with this approach, we will be doing ourselves and the several generations of Grenadians to come a huge disfavor. And so under my leadership, I intend to break that vicious cycle of nepotism.
We need to know that all of us belongs to the National Democratic Congress. So we can't just argue and fight for what I will get, what I will get, what I will get, when you don't know your people. So sometimes the reason the other side getting is because we're not saying who are the real NDC people who need to get, because we don't know one another enough.
Congress commits to regularizing the status of contract workers who are working for the government and Imani workers who are working for the government within 12 months of assuming office. We never said we would regularize the public service in 12 months. We said we would regularize it. And we have begun to do so. In that position. Right. And I'm saying the job of the citizens, of the government, is to fight for its citizens, to protect its citizens, to encourage its citizens to be independent, not dependent, not vulnerable. So that is the challenge we face. And I'm saying it is solvable by the stroke of a pen.
Yep.
And let me make this further point. It is actually illegal. The Employment Act clearly says that you cannot put someone on a fixed term contract, meaning these short term contracts, when the position they are filling is an indefinite one. So when people want to make mischief, they go around and saying, you say I stroke a pen, you can regularize everybody, you stroke a pen, regularize everybody. I never said that. I said there should be one public service. And I will say it again, there should be one public service. Is that in order to treat with that, we simply cannot take all of them and make them established public servants for the simple reason that it will bankrupt the government. It will not be sustainable. As far as I'm concerned, if by October and November we don't have an arrangement where us as leaders in the OECS are prepared to do that, then it means that Grenada has to go and lease 2 planes so that we can fly between Grenada and Barbados, Grenada and Trinidad. We will have to do so. But it requires cooperation from all the region, because you can't just fly between Grenada and Carriacou. You have to fly Barbados, St. Vincent, so you need all of the islands to take part. You need all of the islands to be prepared to give the airline operator the rights to fly into their country. And if you don't have those things in place, air travel isn't going to come now. But it requires regional cooperation. It's not something that individual island can do alone. Even if we bought a plane, we need the rights to travel into other islands, right? And we don't have enough traffic. 100,000 people, we simply don't have enough traffic to maintain a commercial airline that just carries people.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there we had it. The great contradictor. The greatest contradictor the world has ever seen. And I'm happy that we are still alive after 2022, and even more so now, to hear those words that were uttered in confidence, those words that were said to Grenadians with zeal and power. Yeah? Those things that are being said, and then at the end of the day, persons are now twisting it and saying, no, me never said that. But you see, I am also happy that the technological age that we are now in, that persons now have the opportunity to do things like this. I am happy that we now have the opportunity and that persons out there can hear. Persons out there can hear things that were said comprehensively. Comprehensively. Things that were said in confidence. Things that were said like, you know, by the stroke of a pen. 12 months. Yeah? Those things that, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard, that this gentleman uttered from his mouth, and then come back and twist it in the best fashionary way that he believes that he can fool others. And let me tell you something. They're talking and uttering words about us. Ever so often in recent days, you hear him talk about, oh yeah, Facebook bajan and social media bajan. He's a big word bajan. He's a big word bajan. Yes, I can remember one of my old teachers, Mr. Bowler, Gordon Bowler, my English literature and language teacher, used to always utter something when something happens in class. I remember I was in Form 1, and that was way back And one of the things he always said about when mistakes are made by anyone, he said anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Mr. Bola used to always say that. That anyone that has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Let me show you the truthfulness to that statement to date. After 3 years in office, this is a political administration that has done absolutely nothing but take up the rear ends or the continuation processes of work done by the previous administration. And they simply still castigate on the things that they cannot accomplish by blaming the past administration. So when things happen in this country, as of late, you never hear this prime minister has ever stood up one day yet. Worst case scenario of fatality. Remember what he said when the accusers would have taken the life of the two individuals? Oh, I don't want to promote it, so I didn't address it. And then he cast a blame on officers at the South St. George police station. We recently heard the corruption scandal and conversation. He termed them to be simple mistakes that are not widespread. Simply saying to the individual, don't worry, one person have COVID, don't make noise. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard things that we have put together that have been contradictory when it comes to this present prime minister and political leader. More so in the recent explosions that happened at Telescope. Again, without giving details, in his words, and I quote, without giving details, I will say that the report indicated that the process chosen to destroy the ordinances was not prudent and not in keeping with the best practice. The words of the Prime Minister, the person responsible for national security. Ladies and gentlemen, take it to mind that if we did not understand what happened last week on the 1st of July, let me indicate to you what happened. There is a protocol within the state of Grenada that requires any form of explosives, fireworks, they are to be stored at the Special Services Unit. And now, if that has to be destroyed, there must be a process that must be followed in destroying those items. Now, I would break it down as simple as this. When there are live rounds of firearm training that is being done within the Paul's area, for those of us who are aware, there is usually a public announcement that is made that, hey, do not be within such vicinity because this is what is going to happen. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a precautionary measure that is taken. And we're talking about just simply live rounds. Yes? Now, the Prime Minister, as the Minister of National Security, stands among our people and says that the ordinances was not prudent and not keeping with the best practice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time these products have been destroyed in Grenada. He went on and explained that the explosives were the property of Gravel and Concrete, Emulsion Production Corporation, and was stored at the Special Services Unit headquarters, as I just explained. The Explosive Act mandates that all explosives be stored by the police. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister is responsible for national security. More so, Gravel and Concrete is involved. Another ministry that falls under his scope of ministerial role. And he stood and let Grenadians know on a platform that he is not responsible, that he lays the fault on Gravel and Concrete. So this is me saying, this is not me that did it, but because how I taught my daughter, she is the fault. More or less, that is what is being said indirectly by the Prime Minister. The procedure was not followed. Yes, under your ministry, are there any specific prudent procedure and practice that you have now or since inculcated from since taking office? No. No. Because that is how you believe that it has been done all this time. Ladies and gentlemen, that is explosives. In a nutshell, he went on to say that there was a police escort just in case. Well, basically what he's saying, the escort was simply to ensure that persons did not take away. That did not take away the explosive. Well, I'm quoting too much. Now, you know, as a man, I don't want to quote what people say, and next thing they say, not that I says that. So let you guys have him explain it to you.
And the irresponsible Prime Minister authorized unstable explosives to be transported from the southern tip of the island. Explosive that was under the control of he as National Security Minister. The Prime Minister is now blaming Gravel and Concrete. This is not a Gravel and Concrete matter. This is a national security matter, my brother. The Prime Minister talked about protocols breached. He breached all protocols. Were the people of Telescope notified that this unstable, dangerous explosives was about to be detonated in the area? No. Was the people who was given that assignment, were they licensed explosive experts? No. And you listen to the Prime Minister doing what he does best, trying to absolve himself from.
That was not the clip I was going to play, but I'm happy that, that I got my hands on it, right? That somebody else explained it even further. So, again, I go back to the point. When will this gentleman ever stand and accept his responsibility within his ministry? He is of the belief, and I want to believe to myself, that this gentleman is of the belief that the position that he holds, that when faltered within it, it is a him issue. No. And if you believe that, Mr. Prime Minister, then you lack the understanding of your office. It lacks the understanding of your office, because it is not a you issue. You are, quote unquote, the Prime Minister and the minister responsible. So we are not saying that you had to be there to do what has to be done. But when things of that nature happens, you ought to be responsible enough. You ought to be responsible enough to stand as a grown man and say to the people, hey, this would have happened and I accept the responsibilities of in which it had happened in. Because it falls under my ministry and I ought to take some form of responsibility. And even if you have to assure the people that you would speak to whoever is responsible, then you do so. But every time things of that nature happen, you want to cast the blame on somebody. This is, as was said, a national issue. There's an ACP that is an explosive expert, as just indicated to me. And the question asked, were the person or persons doing the destroying certified to deal with explosives? So when you just jump and you say, oh, it is a gravel and concrete issue. Okay. Okay, it is a gravel and concrete issue. Who is responsible for gravel and concrete? Who? At the end of the day, you all need to understand something. If you have a leader, a father, a mother, anybody that can stand amongst persons and say, hey, I take responsibility for what has happened, and so I would make better for the future. This is all you need to say. You are not even sympathetic or empathetic, and I continue to say that. You show no remorse. You always look to blame somebody. You always look to blame somebody or something. We cannot run away from the fact that you are responsible solely for the both areas that were responsible for the destruction, the police and gravel and concrete. It falls directly under you. You can't simply stand among a people as a leader and said, listen to me, those reports that came to me shows that there was some form of practice or irregular practices that would have happened, and so I would take it up on myself or within my ministry to apologize to the persons, and so I would ensure or try my best to make things better. I mean, come on. How simple is that to do? Are you too big of a man to accept that you faltered or you fall short? Are you too big of a man to understand that? We are not placing that you should have been there to do the destroying. No. It happens. This is an incident. We are not blaming that those things don't happen. No. We are saying that when they do, as a leader and as a responsible person, you ought to accept the fact that there were persons whose livelihood and living would have been, how should I put it, disturbed. This is simple. Who was at the scene? Was there a supervisor from gravel and concrete? Was there a supervisor from the police force? Were there? All those things are things that you would need to look into. And so we don't need for you to come and say, well, okay, the next time it's happening, this is what you would do. No, this is not what we want. We want you to be man enough to take up the responsibility. And I can always tell my female friends who might be having issues with their male companions, fathers. Can bring up a man and tell him about, he irresponsible, and I go bring him up to mind the child. You cannot pay somebody. You cannot cause somebody through a system to make somebody responsible. Responsibility comes natural. Somebody's supposed to be responsible. I build a house. When the bills come, I am supposed to be responsible to pay it. So I don't see why is it that you believe taking or accepting your responsibility as a prime minister, accepting your responsibility as it relates to shortcomings, is so hard to do. When everything good happens, the little that happens with you guys, you open on your road, there are photos, there are photographs, there are things that, but the minute time something goes wrong, it is the NNP. It is the this, it is the that, it is that person, or that person, or that person. Moving on clearly. There's an old saying that a fish rottens from the head. And so when we see subordinates reacting or acting in certain ways, we ought to understand that sometimes you have to ask them, sometimes you see children acting in a particular way, and you go say, you get it from me mother, you get it from me sister, you get it from me aunt, his brother, his sister, whoever, because the fish does rotten from the head. I'm going to play a clip for you guys, and I'm going to go further with it this evening.
Economic activities within the area. Vendors in Guelph St. John are expressing concern over a steady decline in economic activities within the area. Over the past 5 months, many say sales have been noticeably slow, leaving them struggling to meet their financial obligations. One vendor shared with MTV News that while business is not what it once was, she remains thankful for the chance to earn a living and provide for her family.
Well, in the evening time when I come, it's not busy. But like people want something, they will come and say, well, give them that. And yeah, people will take things from me and come back and pay. So I always try. I don't give up. I do little garden for myself. I plant like potatoes, pepper and things. If I don't have nothing, if I don't have them things, I buy from other farmers. Most time for the week. Sometimes I make $100. For the week. Most time for the week. You see, when you sit down here, it's not everybody are going to buy. The things is slow. So anything I make, I just thank God for that.
And how are you surviving on $100 a week?
Well, I check it as that, no, because I'm making it. Sometimes I make a 2 days work with somebody.
Another vendor explained that her earnings have dropped significantly compared to previous years, affecting her ability to make ends meet.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would stop the clip here. I guess most persons by now would have gotten the synopsis or the at least the genesis of the what I'm trying to bring across. This was an interview done by MTV News, and so that is the opinion of persons. Yes, yeah, a journalist would go around and do that ever so often. We have not seen, this is not something new in Grenada. We have seen this time and time again. Carnival season, whatever it is happening in Grenada, we normally see journalists taking it to the streets and maybe questioning persons. Sometimes election is around the corner, so on and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, the things I want to say this evening may land me in a bad position. I'm saying this to you openly. The things I want to say this evening may land me in a bad position, so I would contain myself. After this was done, parliamentary representative for the St. John's area would have posted on her Facebook page, and I quote, "Watch dunceness, NN, sorry, MTV News Grenada, take win for back of the class." I don't know if this young lady's opportunity to accept falters. I don't know if the ability to construct the English language without insult or obscene is far from her capacity of learning. I don't know if she intently sometimes says things to intimidate, or whether or not she's trying to keep to the cultural growth to say, God, people don't back down. I want to believe that she acts in that particular way in the belief that her culture or growing within the area is causing her to be free, and does not understand the moral ethic that she must condone as a parliamentary representative, more so a young lady in politics. Notwithstanding the fact that you went over the line and addressed a media house by speaking of them as dons, or the practice of dunceness. So now, ladies and gentlemen, big dogs, commoners, yeah, make some can noise, but not mistakes. It is the practice of the individual. That is how she is. She cannot speak without attempting to humiliate or insult. What was the last one? Cultural illiterates or illiterate or something of that nature. Her practice of speaking, if you don't know her, by now you can tell that her culture of speaking must bring across some form of insult or belittling or looked down upon. Big dogs, commoners, dons, being obscene, words like illiterate, it is her common practice. So you can tell even when this young lady is not in the public's image, this is the way she speaks. So it is hard to take that away from her now. Because unless you're not on the same level with her, she believes of her thinking of you is always diminished. It's like you're down here. And it saddens me because it shows, ladies and gentlemen, that her position at present and the person in whom she represents, she sees them as nobody. And I'm getting this from these 5 instances. Commoners, big dog, illiterate, no dons, Andy, make some effing noise. This is her way, her culture of communication through the process of English language. That is how she is. It cannot be taken away from her. That is how she is. You can tell that by now. So anybody to be in the back of the class, well, for them not even the back of the class, you should be out of the class. Because your behavior and demeanor within the past few times, and the thing about it, when she's supposed to sound intelligent, or when she's supposed to be knowledgeable, she has not a clue. Every child in Grenada know Hurricane Ivan passed in 2004. She stood in the House of Parliament and said the Hurricane Ivan passed in 2014. She wasn't dunce. She wasn't illiterate. She wasn't a commoner. She was a big dog. You don't even know what year Ivan passed in Grenada. But here you are on social media calling people dunce. Thing like Hurricane Ivan, one of the most devastating hurricanes to the island. As the minister responsible for climate resilience, you don't even know when the hurricane passed. You're on social media calling people dunce. During her campaign, she said she'd dig up the walk on the lands and plant tree, you know. I'll never know that. She's the one that said she'd dig up the sidewalk in the lands and plant tree. She bright for that and them. Very intelligent. Ask her what year Ivan passed. If me was MTV, I would have played the clip. I would have played the clip to compare dunceness, to see what MTV did and what you said. Which one was a dotish response? It happens every day. Media houses go about asking people questions. It was the opinion of people in your constituency. It was an awareness for you, young politician. You should have at least reached to the point in the back of your mind to say to yourself, okay, if those persons are at that stage, let's see how we can work on pull a meeting and try to beef up the livelihood of those individuals. But no, you choose to call MTV News dunce. While the people within your constituency are suffering, you want to take bones with a media house. Sad. Your irrelevance continue to show up. Because that conversation there, as a parliamentary, that is irrelevant to what the people shared. Lady said she make $100 during the week. Reach out and maybe say, I wonder what is the situation with that individual. This is your position. This is your position. And ever so often, you know, recently a man told me that. He said, I'm not into politics, you know. He said, but you realize before, every time all of them used to talk about things with NNP, and they say, NNP gonna fix it. They say that NNP gonna fix it. They say that NNP gonna fix it. Instead of they listen to the suggestions and the things that we're talking about, instead they bantering with us. They bantering to back and forth, and the problem remains. And here is the bantering. Oh, I was there for 23 years. There's the bantering, you know. Brother Alvin Dabrio would have shared his opinion on this. In a recent MTV newscast, vendors in Gulf St. John shared their struggles with the rising cost of living and the daily hardships they face. Their concerns are not isolated. They reflect the ordinary Grenadians across the country are going through. Instead of addressing those genuine concerns, the elected member of parliament for St. John's, Honorable Karen James, chose to insult the media, dismissing the report as dunceness. Such a response is not just a slight against journalism, but a disregard for the people whose voices are being heard through the report. It is a blatant insult to them. These are not lazy people looking for trouble. They're hardworking citizens trying to survive. What they deserve is not ridicule, but respect, empathy, and action. Under the new National Party, we introduced a real support during tough times, from subsidies to small business reliefs. There are evidence to support that. The current administration should focus less on silencing critics and more on delivering solutions. You hear I just said it? Leadership means listening, engaging, acting in the interest of people, not dismissing the cries for help. It saddens me. And every time I say it over and over again, young politicians in whom I expect to grow themselves and talking about who old and who too old, you all are practicing some old illiterate politics. Yeah? Or just some old school and vague. You're waiting to hear the Media Worker Association of Grenada? Well, you don't have to wait for them. Let me make you hear them. And let me show all you the difference in things. You're waiting to hear the Media Workers Association? My dear friend, you're waiting for the coming of Christ. Let me show you or make you listen or make you listen a little while to how or what they believe in. See if I get the clip. You're mad? Media Worker Association. Wait on them. Wait on them. All the media worker doing is showing her weight around. I wonder if that is it. I don't find her getting it. I don't know where you. Anyway, sorry I don't get a chance to play it. But there was an interview. That's it. Yeah, look at it, yeah. Media worker. Right now
They're going on the block.
Media worker, you're mad. Listen to that.
A few days ago, I was listening to the minister of MIT, and he was saying that they're going on the block and pick up some people, and they learn a thing, as they say, a thing or two from construction, and before you know it, they're building houses, they do the electrical work, and they're doing plumbing. And I'm saying, Lord have mercy, because.
Well, you know, Mr. Batiste, let me stop you here. I saw that video too, and what I noticed is that there is no context. If we're talking about the same video that was cut, and the Minister of Finance speaks, and then the Minister of MIT speaks, and then the Minister of Social Development speaks, that a series of clips that was put together that does not really provide context for the comments that were being made. So I do not know whether or not here on the narrative we want to use it as a measure for anything.
President, yeah? The president is listening to some clips and cannot grasp the context of what the clip is saying. The clips, even if the clips were cut, and as a media personnel, you want to get the entire thing. And mind you, that's something I catch myself doing. Whenever I get a piece of clip, I go to the actual video and I look at it. Because sometimes a man would say, I believe everybody should dead. And you cut just that and you play it. And then everybody is out there saying, oh, you got the man saying you dead. But if you listen to the entire clipping, it would say to you that the man was saying, everybody should dead, in his opinion. We didn't get a last piece. So the person may cut, everybody should dead, and would just send out that piece of clip. But in its entirety, the gentleman could have been saying, everybody should have dead, in his opinion. That is what he believed. That could have been the entire thing he said. But for mischievous practice, you may cut what you want. This is not what happened here. This is not what happened here. The Minister of Housing, in a heartbeat program, clearly stated that, hey, the program is lackadaisical in terms of the persons that are employed to conduct the duties. Yes, she went on to say it is a disaster behind a disaster. She went on to give incidences whereby persons are, when they think All those things were said. The Minister for Finance would have said that, hey, he even gave a scenario. He didn't just say it, He even gave a scenario. He said, this is the problem we're having. He said, I have heard stories that he didn't want to mention, and he went on to say it. The Prime Minister went on further in the conversation. So when you're saying you don't want to use it as in its context, what other context? What Mr. Battis is saying, you don't even ask him whether or not he is grasping it from the clip. Yes, and what Mr. Battis mentioned, it was beyond the headlines program when the minister responsible for MIT stated that he went on the block and he had a meeting in the lines. He went on to call a gentleman some Fletcher's name. So what you're talking about context? But you see, when your agenda is focused differently, so you're waiting on the Media Workers Association, then you have a long wait. You have a long wait. Because by now, we expect that if it was Dr. Mitchell, the anger within the Media Workers Association would have spurred toward the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Yeah? So, it is okay. In the and mind you, this was made public. This was made public of what the minister did. I'm certain by now the president has seen it. I'm certain. But no, if you went on a page recently, she was posting where the alleged police officer was in a recreational setting. Yeah? And he's on bail, and he's and while the deceased is 6 feet under, he's out there. Those are the narrative you get. Yeah? This is what you get. So if you're waiting on that, yeah? If you're waiting on that level of substance and credibility from Media Workers Association, you have a very long wait. You have a very, very long wait. Yeah? So ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, and with so much that have been said thus far, yeah, it officially brings us to the end of today's programming. I'm hoping that today can I get you ready for the week. I don't know whether or not I'll do a pre-recording to make up for Monday. Yeah, I really want to get this thing on the ball, keep it on the ball. So I know Sister Jenny is normally on Thursdays. I would observe, but I'll do a recording. I would do a recording, and if she does not broadcast on Thursday, then I would put it out. But I would have missed yesterday, and as I said to you guys, I am trying to minimize the amount of time that I don't do the program. Yeah, I want to get it going. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's broadcast. I am happy that many of you guys would have joined me. We're going to be back here again tomorrow, same time, same place. As you know, you look onto the different pages. If you want to be part of the WhatsApp group, you can join us. The number is going across the page. If you want, you can just shoot me a message and I add you on the WhatsApp group. A lot of information passes in there. Trust me, there is no rules in there in terms of, oh, don't go to relevant. And no. When I say that, everybody knows how they have to act and have been acting in that responsible manner. Information have been coming through and from the WhatsApp group, and a lot of things have been happening in there. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, it was definitely a pleasure to be in your company for another wonderful one. We are going to be back here again tomorrow. And when we're here, our conversation will definitely continue.
The line is drawn in the sand. Can someone help me to understand what's going on? What's taking place now in my nation? All of a sudden, like some people don't know right from wrong. They're taking their debt like some sheep with their heads bowed down. But I remember times in the past when politicians were doing crap. They wasn't afraid to call out their wrongs and let them know they're not having that. But nowadays, it's like people scared to speak the truth. They're living in fear, disparity, hypocrisy. It's confusing me, and it's a shame to see. They can't do that. They can't do that. They can't have the people hostage. To speak the truth, everybody afraid. They can't do that. They can't do that. From public servants you can hear a song. Victimization, Lord, they tie the tongue. They can't do that. 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 Pam pam fado, pam pam boy. Pressure, pressure. Everywhere you go, the same cry. People can't meet the basic needs, Lord, the country dry. But for some people, you can tell them that they don't want to hear. They don't care how much people suffering once they party then. We healthcare system drowning in a mess. Basic medicine, the patients can get them poor money's, the hands on the head, who take away the bread, so heartless and dread. But still we PM keep wasting millions, traveling the world and renting a mansion. Disparity, hypocrisy, it's confusing me, and it's a shame to see. They can't do that. They can't do that. They can't turn deaf ear to the people's cries, and every day feeding them bags of lies. They can't do that. They can't do that. Too much ego, too much arrogance, no empathy, I do what I want. They can't do that. 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 Padoy, pam pam boy. Calypsonians, we all want to know where the hell you're gone. Those self-proclaimed who call themselves the people's champion. For years and years, you sing songs claiming you're the people's voice. But it's clear right now, you no longer care about the people's plight. So much was waiting on the Chinese homes, but so sad for them, they can't get the loan. 118 million we got for burial. Affected families catching their ass still. The poor man can get GDP small loan, but some ministers could get few millions. Disparity, hypocrisy, it's confusing me, and it's a shame to see. They can't do that. They can't do that. The temporary workers, I hear them say, they might get permanent when they turn grey. They can't do that. They can't do that. The promise was made, they go pay pension. Now they stuffing the throat with pension reform. They can't do that. 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 Alibidoy, tidilide, tolololoy. I hope this song sheds some light on some people's life and help them to think it straight and see wrong from right. It doesn't matter who you support, that is your own choice. But don't allow that to make you deaf or darken your sight. Before politics, we are Grenadians, so we can be free to say wrong is wrong. No matter your race, no matter the class, shouldn't be about color, but this country first. So let's change this now before it's too late, and let's try our best and eliminate disparity, hypocrisy. It's confusing me, and it's a shame to see. They can't do that. They can't do that. They can't keep them fooling us every day and expect we problems to go away. They can't do that.